All right, I'm live again. Let me see. It's my third time doing this. Let's see here. I'm just checking right now. Let's see. All right, I'm live again. Let me see. It's my third time doing this. Let's see here. I'm just checking right now. All right, it sounds like it's all good. Okay, so we're going to give people just a minute to get on here. And let's see what happens. Okay, so... All right, so I'm here. I just tried it out, and I think it's working. So we'll see, all right? We're going to give people time to get on. Thank you so much for your patience. Really appreciate it. All right, just waiting. Let me know. Just one sound check. I don't want the chat to be flooded with sound good. I'm glad. Yeah, just let me know. All right. We're just gonna give people just a few more moments, and then we'll go ahead and get into it. All right, so again, what you're hearing is coming from our album that we just released here, and it's called Sound Time, and you can get that. You can get it right over on sombertree.com. And yep, this is our first album. I'm actually right in the middle of working on our second one. The second one is going to be a lot more peaceful. So yes, I already got two that I'm almost finished. Still working on that. And again, that album, this is the album cover right here. Just waiting on. Just a few more moments for our people to get on, and then we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started here. This one shouldn't be too long. This one shouldn't be too long at all. But anyway, yeah, this is the album right here. It's called Sound Time. Get it now. $4.99, y'all. $4.99. I'm just playing you some of the clips here. And if you didn't see our video where we just introduced the album, where I was giving you the story behind each song and all of that, make sure you check that out. They'll give you an idea of what it sounds like and all of that. And like I said, again, we got a lot more where that comes from, and we're going to be dropping that really, really soon. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you guys for your patience and for your input, and let me know about the sound situation. I have no idea what's causing that, but thankfully it's not an issue. At least it doesn't appear to be right now. So anyway, good to see you guys here. Hope you guys had a great week, and you should be having a good weekend. Where we are right now, it is 91 degrees. So it's pretty warm out there, but so far this time of the year, the best time to go out early in the day or in the evening time. That's when we get out, and I'm able to get my walk in or whatever, but I ain't trying to walk during the midday. Oh no. Not if you want to turn into a singe. That's about it. Yeah, it's pretty warm out there. But anyway, but it's nice. It's nice. And I know we're just getting started here because, once we start really getting to the summer, at least here in Arizona, it's going to get into well over 100. So that's a whole nother kind of world right there. So anyway, someone said, do I have an email address? Yes, if someone can provide that, I'll tell it to you. It is connect at journeymanandwoman.com. Connect at journeymanandwoman.com. And I think someone will put that in the chat for you. Okay, and you can reach out to me at any time. Okay. All right. So today what we're going to do is, if you haven't been paying attention to, our post on a community page, you've been definitely missing quite a bit. And what we've been doing is, and is something we're going to continue to do, is we're just continuing to challenge our people. And, I get this question every now and then, or statement, or I'll say more so a question. They say, well, what's your agenda? What's my yeah, I get that one a lot. It's like, what's your agenda? You're coming up with these strange doctrines. What? Okay, so my strange doctrine is asking questions. That's my strange doctrine. Please tell me so, and you can drop it in the chat. Let people know if for those that have been watching and following on our community page or on our videos, please let the world know what gods am I pointing people to start worshiping? Is there some kind of alternative god or deity that I'm telling people, don't worship that god, you need to worship this god over here? No, I'll answer that for you, but maybe there's a dual me somewhere that's an evil version of me that's telling that. I'm not saying any of that. All we're simply doing is getting people to begin to really ask questions. Black folks, when it comes to the Bible, and this is something I've been was mentioning in the last live I believe we did, and that was where we had the phone line open and gave people the opportunity to call in. Black folks, when it comes to the Bible, we have been the security guards for the Bible. And basically, you're paid to stand out in front of this building. You don't know what goes on in there. You got some idea, but your contract and your paycheck says, do not ask any questions. Your job is to stand here and to defend this building, period. You're not to ask anything. You're not to allow anybody in the vicinity to ask any questions or to even come near to asking any questions, because if you do, what your job is, your job is to attack them. And this is exactly what you see a lot of our people do. We have been the bulldogs or just the pit bulls when it comes to protecting the Bible. Now, there's nothing wrong with protecting what you believe in. Let me be clear with that. If that's something this is your foundation and this is what I believe and nobody can take it from me, I'm not here to mock you. Okay. Now there's other people out there that do that, but I'm not one. Okay. Because guess what? I'm one of y'all. I've come out of that. Do you understand what I'm saying? So no, I'm not one to be sitting up here mocking you. All we're simply doing here is to get you to move from just standing there and being it came to my mind. I'm not going to say it, but basically being a lawn jockey. Okay, I'll say it. Stop being just a lawn jockey for this thing and allow yourself to begin to ask questions. There's nothing wrong with that. And people get very intimidated with that. Let me just say this. Hats off to the people who called in the last live we did and just to either ask questions or give a comment. Really do appreciate that because, for me, I don't, all I see is comments and I'm trying to turn this light on here. All I get is the comments and, maybe some of the people in the chat. I see that and that's it. And that's all I get. But I don't actually see real people. You see me, but I don't see you. You know what I'm saying? So I really appreciate those who were willing to call in. And then the one brother that called in as well, if he's here, really appreciate you, bro, for calling in. And we do that from time to time because you know why I did that the last time? And I mentioned this recently, and I'm going to say it again here on this platform. It's because of the fact that typically I don't mind the pushback. I don't mind that at all. That's fine. That's dialogue. It's totally fine. You understand what I'm saying? I don't mind a disagreement. Don't mind that at all. But what does get a little puzzling to me is when it automatically has to go into personal stuff. When you're getting into the personal attack kind of stuff, that I don't like. You know what I mean? Because now you're going off the rails, or you can't stay on topic. Or because I'm asking you one question. It's a very simple question. That's usually what it comes down to. And then you're just coming here to give a whole dissertation, but you're not answering the question. And so things like that, I'm just automatically snipping you and just saying, keep it moving. So, yeah. And so in this last wave, especially with the video that we did on the Sabbath, I knew I was going to get some pushback or stuff on that. That's fine. But at the end, the people who were pushing back on it, I have people just literally trying to make up something to make it real. Just because for example, just because, the God of the Bible, for the most part, well, they're gods. I mean, you got El, and then you got Yahweh, then there's Baal, there's other gods and stuff too, which we're going to talk about. But anyway, just because you as an individual may say, well, I don't call him Yahweh, I call him Yah, or I call him Ahaya. Okay, it doesn't matter, because you did not write that book. The people who wrote that book called him either El, depending on who they're addressing, or Yahweh. Now, there's other spellings for that name. El is the Most High, not Elohim, El Elyon, which means the Most High, right? He's the supreme God. Under that, there's Yahweh and then all the other gods too, and Baal and all of that, right? We've talked about this, okay? And please go back to the other videos. If this is your first time watching, we've explained this. Please go, and you can do even for yourself. Look up the Canaanite pantheon, all right? And you're going to see El at the top with his wife Asherah, and then under that, all his sons. I think it might be a daughter under there. And among his sons is Baal. And then you keep going and you'll see Yahweh. All right. So, yeah, that's kind of how that works. So when you're reading the Bible, that is how it's laid out. I don't care how your preacher for years and years and years presented it. But this is where it comes from. That's not my opinion. OK, I'm not putting any opinion. I'm not putting any spin. I'm not doing any of that. I am begging people to look this stuff up for yourself. We've even presented it. And, so anyway, so in this last wave, I had, there were quite a few men, which was interesting, because typically the men, they just don't really say too much, but this time I actually had a few brothers that were, pushing back or whatever. And I said, okay, fine. You know what? Let me go live and give these brothers an opportunity to talk. Okay. Not to, and I said, even on that live, if you watch it, I said, listen, we're not going to argue. We're not going to debate in the sense of what you typically see, on the internet streets. We're not going to do that. We're just going to have a very calm, conversation. And at the end of the day, what you choose to believe is what you choose to believe. It's simple. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. And I hope and pray you don't lose any sleep over it either. But if you want to be heard, let's go. Here's the opportunity for you to do that. Not one of those brothers, this happens all the time. They always go silent on me. Always. The loudest ones typically in our comment section are the ones that when you put the mic and turn it their way, nothing. And then it was funny because after that live, then they start coming back again. And then all peppering the comment section once again. And then this one person, he couldn't, I kept asking him the same question over and over again. And it clearly wasn't working because he wasn't answering and he was going through all this other stuff. Then what he did was go under another thread under the same video and try to, because see, I think what he's saying is like, whoa, wait a minute. You literally are acting like a little girl at this point. You know what I mean? You said you just try to email me. Did I give you the wrong email? Hold on, man. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me see if I gave you the wrong email. It may be connect or contact. Hold on for a second, man. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right one. Okay. It is. No, I got it. I got your email. If you got to bounce something on there, that's what I gave you is correct. I got it. It's right here. Well, you can't see it, but I got your email. All right. So no, it's not invalid. I got it. But anyway, so there you go. So I give these people an opportunity to get up and to say what you're going to say. That's it. But the only thing we ask is, listen, if we're going to have any kind of conversation when it comes to history, okay, we have to be factual with that. This is not the land of make believe here. Okay. We have to be factual. All right. That does not mean that I'm somehow the shell answer man and I have all the answers and I have all the facts. No, I don't. I'll tell you that straight up. I don't. But we do have access to things that we can say are completely factual. And if it does not line up, then we have to toss that. You understand what I'm saying? I'll give you an example. Someone today, they left a comment under one of the posts and they said, well, this is what I think is, well, and it's fine. You're stating out on the front end, this is what you think, right? That's fine. That's okay. He says, and then went on to say, what I think or what I believe is that what happened is that Satan overheard God's, and I'm paraphrasing, God's plan for humanity, you know, and what he was going to do. And so what he did was basically went down into, you know, before God and he set up all this other stuff. And so that way, when God enacted his plan, it just caused confusion. I was like, whoa, where did you even get that from? You understand what I'm saying? You can't make things up. Someone said, greetings from Ethiopia. Hey, listen, I'm trying to do that shoulder dance. I can't do it. We don't have the bones for it. We don't have the bones for it. At least I don't. But anyway, so anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, you can't make things up. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if that's what you want to believe, then okay, that's your belief. But your belief doesn't make it factual. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, and so this is something that we encounter quite a bit. And even, you know, as someone who's in Christianity, then came into the Hebrew space, it wasn't more, I really saw it in, well, Christianity too, but the Hebrew space, it was, I would say, is even more pronounced because a trend that I notice is that when the facts don't exactly line up, then what happens is people begin to fill in what their beliefs are. And then it causes confusion with that, right? And so, like I said, case in point with the whole Russian painting nonsense, you know, people literally went through this whole trove of paintings that have been out there and available for years and years and years and saying that, and only picking out the ones that look black, right? But they skipped over the ones that didn't look black. And there are paintings out there that are made, and I'm telling you right now, numbers of these paintings that people are pointing out that said, see, they made Jesus look black. You can go look up the author or the artist of those paintings, of that particular painting that you're parading and saying, see, they approved us. They acknowledged us. Isn't that sad? In 2024, black people still want acknowledgement and appreciation from white people. I don't understand the obsession, y'all, with white. I don't get it. Why are you worrying about what they feel and what they think about you in 2024? Anyway, so the whole painting thing, look up the artist of that painting, whatever that painting is. And I'm going to tell you right now, like I did, you're going to see that this artist also painted Jesus white. So what people do is that they'll say, oh, they got to him. Now, all of a sudden, you got to bring in a conspiracy to make it make sense. Do you understand what I'm saying? And our people do this stuff all the time, such as in this case here. So today in this video, what we're going to talk about, there are many people out here that are doing what we're doing, but they may be at a much greater level. In terms of just really getting to the truth of the matter of a lot of these things. And this is one of the things that I came across, and I'll go ahead and bring it on the screen now. And then we can just go ahead and talk about it briefly here. That was the latest post. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's talk about this one here. This is about the whole, the statues where the noses are knocked off. Now, all of us, we have heard on this, just throughout the internet world, we have heard that it was who's behind this whole thing about the noses, right? That they knocked the noses off because they didn't want people to know that they were black people. And it's a plausible thing. That's a plausible that's a possibility. Okay. We really don't know. Okay. But it is it is something that you can say is somewhat plausible. All right. You can say that and you can leave it up there. But what our people have done is we have just simply repeated these things over and over again as if they're truth. And that's not something, and we have to stop doing that. You understand? And so a lot of the focus, anytime when we're talking about the statues with the noses knocked off, it's always focused on Egyptian statues, right? But it's not just Egyptian statues. If you would have just clicked here, it's also Greek statues. Oh, yes, there's a whole lot of Greek statues. This is just some of them where the noses were specifically taken off. So now the whole argument that they knocked the noses off because they didn't want people to know that they were black. Well, now all of a sudden we may have to revisit that. We have to revisit that because that doesn't add up. That's not adding up here. So the whole that is now, we can put some big red question marks on that because that does not add up. It doesn't. If you saw the same trend happening in Greece as you did in Egypt, because clearly these statues are white. Now I got some Hebrews out here that will probably say, no, they're black. All these right here, these are all black people. I'm telling you, they will do that. They will do that. And I was being a little funny here. And I posted this one up here too. I said, did Greece just open up their secret vaults too? Let me tell you, no. I think they're made out of bronze, and that's what bronze does over time. They turn dark. But anyway, so these statues, they also had their noses knocked off. Well, so there was someone online I came across. They provided some very interesting information about that. So let's take a look here and let's see. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'll just read the post for you. Okay, we'll just do that. That'll keep me on track here. So I think we're now starting to find out who exactly was behind the removal of these noses off of those statues. While I'm not comfortable in making an absolute conclusion, here is what we do know, and I stand behind that. Like I said again, I'm not going to say these were the actual. This is it. This is done. But man, it's sure a strong case for it. It's a very, very strong case because it's too specific. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, let's read here what I posted here. Number one, these are the things that we do know about it. Number one, there are plenty of records showing that Jews have been living in Egypt for a very long time. And then I meant to add there too, there's also obviously plenty of records that show that Jews were living in Greece for a long time too, right? Hellenistic Jews, right? So they were living in both of these areas. Okay. Well, that's really not enough to really go by that, that's not. So that right now at this point, if we were to stop right there, we would that's a guilt by association. You're just saying, well, look at the crime going up because all them black people living over there. Well, no, you're just saying that because it's convenient. If I was to stop there, but we're not stopping there. We got to keep looking at the other things that we do know. All right. So number two, here we have specific instructions, historical record, giving instructions on how to desecrate a statue while leaving every other part intact. And that's a pretty damning evidence, but I would still leave room for other possibilities. And I do, and maybe some other stuff coming up. Well, guess what we found? You have to go into the Talmud. Now, when you go into the Talmud, it has some very interesting passages in here. And these passages are pertaining to, they're for a Gentile. And I think this is for a Gentile who wants to convert to something. I believe that's what it is. If a Gentile wants to convert to their belief system, this is what they have to do by order of these Jewish people at that time. All right. So let's read this one. This is Mishnah Avodah Zara, and that's in the 4th section. All right. So let's read this. It says, how does a Gentile revoke the status of an object of idol worship? Now check this out. It says, if he cuts off the tip of its ear or the tip of his nose or its fingertip, or if he crushed it, even though he did not remove any part of it, in all these cases, he thereby revoked its status as an object of idol worship. If he spat before the idol, urinated before it, dragged it on the ground, or threw excrement at it, the status of the idol is not revoked, as this is only a temporary display of scorn. And afterwards, the Gentile might continue to worship the idol. If the Gentile sold it or mortgaged it, Rabbi Yehuda Ha-Nasi says he thereby revoked its status. And the rabbis say that he did not revoke its status. All right. Now, it's not just, that's one, as you just read, as you just heard, that's pretty specific. All right. Well, let's look at this. There's another section of the same Mishnah. This is Mishnah Avodah Zara, and this is in 53a. All right. So let's read it. It's going to pretty much say the same thing. How does a Gentile revoke the status of an object of idol worship? If he cut off the tip of his ear or the tip of his nose or fingertip, it pretty much says the same thing. I don't think I need to read that again. So here you have Jewish people, and we're just going to say Jewish. I know some people get hung up on Jewish, Hebrew, whatever. It's pretty much the same thing. All right. It's the same thing. I was dealing with someone earlier and they're trying to hair splice between the two. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. If you running out here talking shalom, that's what the Jews say. You understand what I'm saying? So you Jewish, or at least you pretending to be one. All right. So well, let's continue on. And so I said, worth noting. Here's some things that's worth noting. Number one, this Mishnah was originally written back in 1523. So what I just read to you, that was written, according to them, back in 1523. All right. Number two, they said the rest of this statute was to remain. The rest of the statute was to remain intact. This describes perfectly the condition of the statues we have today without noses. Now, let me just add this. Another account that I read about the reasoning behind the knocking off the noses. They believed that there were some people who believed that these statues they were actually real people. These were the souls of these deities actually lived in these statues. And so another belief is by removing the nose, that if that statue ever decided to reanimate itself or animate itself, it couldn't breathe. And that's why the noses were removed. That's another thing I heard too. So, but here we have documented proof, all right, of instruction on how to do it. And who is it? Who is this? Where's this proof coming from? It's coming from the Jews. All right. So here's what I wrote here. I said the Talmud is Hebrew history. Like it or not, you personally may not abide by it, but if you claim the culture, you also claim the practices. Let me say that again. If you claim the culture, shalom, mishpokah, khan, ak, you also claim the practices. You cannot, you can't just delineate the things out that you don't like. Do you understand what I'm saying? Versus the things you want to embrace. You can't be a part-time culture person is what I'm trying to say. All right. Let me say that again. But if you claim the culture, you also claim the practices. Culture isn't like a buffet where you pick up or choose what you want to call, in this case, Hebrew culture. Further proof of this is now listen to this part. Further proof of this is the amount of Hebrews, I'm talking today now, black Hebrews, who will use the Talmud to confirm the skin color of Shem. Let me let that sit for a second there. Let me let that sit for a second. Further proof of this is in the amount of Hebrews who will use the Talmud to confirm the skin color of Shem. Now, I can point to you channels. I can point to you documentaries. I can point to you teachers who have pointed to the Torah, the Talmud. There's a passage in the Talmud that describes the skin color, or it gives a description of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And when you get to Shem, it describes him, he's dark, but lovely, or something like that. It's something like that, right? I will pull it up, but honestly, I don't even feel like pulling it up, but you can look it up. All right. You know what? I'll do it. Yep. I'm going to do it, because that would just shut it all down. And it just, because I don't feel like hearing nothing else on that one. But let me go ahead and pull this up here. All right. Let's see. We're going to go Talmud. All right. We're going to look up description of Shem. Okay. Let's go here. Let's see. Oh yeah, is this in here? Maybe this. Maybe it's. Hold on. I'm looking it up right. I got it up right now. Let me see here. Let's see. Let me get right to that Shem. Let me see. Lovely. Shem. I'm just doing a search right quick here. Hold on. It's not there. Let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up. Hold on, y'all. Let's see. That's why I didn't want to stop, because I knew it was going to take me a minute to find it here. Let me see. Let's see. Shem, where is you? Hold on. I'm going to look here. Anyway. Yeah, you look at, if you're interested, you can look it up. I ain't going to eat up all my time looking for that, but it's there. But it describes, Shem is described as being dark but calmly. That's the word I was looking for. Dark but calmly. Look that up. That's how they describe Shem, right? And so Hebrew Israelites say that we're in the line of Shem, all right? So I have seen, there are many videos, there are documentaries, there are teachers out here that have pointed our people to the Talmud to verify that the way we were created, this is how we were created, and this is the proof showing that Shem was in fact our color. All right? That's all over. You can't even deny that. It's all on YouTube, all over YouTube. Ron Dalton, he's one that points to that passage all the time. So here's the thing that I said here. Then now let me go back to what I posted here. Let me go back and we'll continue. Okay, here we go. I said further proof further proof of this is the amount of Hebrews that have used the Talmud to confirm the skin color of Shem. Like I said, it's all over YouTube. By doing so, you are openly claiming their book because on the flip, our people, black folks who are Hebrews will say, oh no, that's their stuff. The Talmud, no, they wrote that stuff. They wrote that stuff. And that's theirs. They're liars and they added stuff. And, I ain't focused on the Talmud. I'm focused on the Torah. I'm about that Torah life, right? We'll say all of that, but you'll use the Talmud to verify who you are, to solidify your identity. So if you're going to use the Talmud, just even if it's that little part, to verify that this is you, then what you're doing is that you are openly claiming that their book is your accurate historical record. You can't get away from it. You can't claim one part and then say the other part is all garbage. You can't do that, because if you're going to claim one part, you're claiming all of it. So this is your history. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is your history. And I can't tell you how many discussions and stuff I got in people. Now, if I found something, here's what's so funny about this. If I came across something where they describe these people not doing, giving instruction on how to desecrate these statues, but let's say if I came across something where it talked about that they were doctors and scientists and they were, they were musicians and they were they were doing all this stuff here. If I was to find in their sources them confirming that, black folks, we wouldn't have no problem with that now, would we? But what we're reading here, what we just read out of their Talmud, your culture, whether if you want to acknowledge it or not, that's Hebrew/Jewish culture. That's your culture. Okay, we're going to be adults here. We're not going to play around. We're not going to duck. We're not going to go around this stuff. We're not going to skirt around and treat history like a buffet bar. That's your stuff. That's your stuff. But the moment we find out, like I said, we're finding out here that these people had at least written down in their record that for Gentiles, giving them instruction how they're to leave an idolatrous life. And they told the Gentiles, if you want to leave this idolatrous life, you need to cut off the noses of these statues. And what I just showed you are statues both in Egypt and also in Greece, where they removed the noses off of these statues. So, like I said, again, I am not going to say this is the silver bullet and there's nobody else out there that was doing it. I'm not going to say that. But they have it's not a mystery, not anymore, as to the prime culprits behind this practice of removing the noses off of these statues, like the Sphinx and, some of these other things, or the other statues and, that were in Egypt and also in Greece. So you should not be confused anymore on that topic. And if you got Hebrews out here today that have no problem with claiming that they are these people. If I was to sit up here and say that these people came, they were living in Egypt at that time and all that, ain't nobody have any problem with that. But the moment I mention this, now all of a sudden it's quiet. You ain't got nothing. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now all of a sudden, it was the white ones that were doing it. Now all of a sudden they turn white. So when they were doing, so this is how it goes. If they were doing evil things, they were white. If they were doing good things, they were black. Aren't you tired of living a mixed up, crazy life like that, where your identity is just, it's all over the place? That doesn't even make any sense. It's the same thing with these Negroes out here that have been claiming to be Sephardic Jews. Well, did you know that Sephardic Jews were also one of the main, they are highly credited for bringing about tarot cards? Did you know that? You won't see that in the documentary, would you? because it's an inconvenient truth. That's right. Kabbalah and tarot cards. Tarot cards. Tarot cards, the Sephardic Jews, all you got to do is look it up. Tarot cards, they started in France because that's where they were, right? I'm talking about these Sephardics. But, France, they got wise and start pushing them out. And so a lot of the Sephardics, Sephardics were all over, but this particular group I'm talking about, they were in France. And so they got pushed out, and then they pushed them into like Spain and Portugal. And that's where you start seeing like the Jewish mysticism really coming about. And out of that mysticism was tarot cards. But see, when you listen to these Negroes out here that are teaching you, they'll leave that part out and try to paint this pictures as if they were just praying and righteous people, and they were you, because if you read this little excerpt right here, it describes them as being black. So therefore, they're black. That means they're black. That means you black, and that's your people. And because many of our people, sadly, have been trained to only listen and obey and not to dig in for yourself, a lot of our people just simply go along with it. And what we do here is we are encouraging you to stop repeating these lies and realize what you are truly embracing. So for those that are just coming in, we just talked about just looking right at this, going right to the Talmud. The Talmud is in fact Jewish/Hebrew history. You cannot get around that. As much as you may want to say, well, I don't read the Talmud, it doesn't matter. It's still Jewish/Hebrew history. You have no authority. You do not have the power to go into their culture and to rename stuff and to say, well, that's them and this is us. No, you don't have that. You can't do that. I can't go into Mexico and start sorting out and like, no, that's y'all stuff and this is our. I can't do that. If you're going to claim that, then that's what it is. Do you understand what you got? That's their stuff. You understand what I'm saying? I know I'm beating this to the ground, but our people really going to have to get this. And I know it's hard for some of our people because this is something that you've been standing on and embracing for a very long time. But you got to understand, if you are out here today claiming or calling yourself a Hebrew or whatever, or Jew, then, you got some people say I'm Ivri or whatever. It doesn't matter. You're still talking about the same people. So number one, if that is the culture you're claiming, your primary God is Yahweh. All right. As we moving on, I'll go to this other post here. Yahweh is a Canaanite deity. Do not, and I repeat, don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. Well, I don't say Yahweh. I say Ahaya. It doesn't matter. Ahaya. Yes, that part Yah. Yah is one of the many names of Yahweh. Okay? You can't get around that. Okay? Neither you or I can go and look at that and say, no, that's not true. Based on what? Because you don't want it to be true? That's not enough. That's the historical record. I use that analogy all the time. You come across people who say, well, I identify as a boy or a girl or whatever. Okay. In your mind, that may be the case, but in the real world, you still what you were born with. And you're going to have to be settled just with that. Do you understand what I'm saying? A lot of this too is it's just for our people. It's a lot of escapism because we don't want to embrace or just, it's just the toils and the troubles that many of our people have been going through for such a long time. We're just wanting an out to it. And that totally makes sense. And it's totally understandable. But you never want to get to the place where you hate yourself. You understand what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, in that space, there are a lot of people that hate themselves. They hate themselves. I'm not going to mention the platform and by name, but I will talk about it and give you and say everything else. And you guys will pretty much know who I'm talking about. But you got cults out here where people are selling all their belongings to be a part of this ministry that calls themselves a Hebrew ministry. They're selling all of their stuff and allowing themselves to literally be treated like slaves. And I scratch my head and wonder, man, what drives a person to get to that point? It's because what gets them to that point is they hate themselves. You have to be a person that actually hates yourself, or you don't see any value in yourself to get to that point. You don't have to be to that extreme. You don't even have to be to that extreme where you selling all your stuff and going along with, and going living off some commune somewhere. You don't even have to get to that point. To sit back and to see big old rusty, dusty Negroes out here trying to, shalom, I mean, you trying to pronounce these Jewish words and no, that's not your language. You look crazy trying to say it because that's not your language. I don't care what anybody says. It's not your original language. It's not. And we've gone, and you just go through our videos. We go through this stuff step by step by step by step, and we show you, no, that's not it. And like I said again, I understand. And it's rooted, like I said again, all of this, it's rooted in escapism. And you got a lot of people out here that say, okay, well, I'm going to help you out and to stay in the escape room. So they'll keep feeding you stuff to keep you staying in their escape room by just adding more things. Y'all, guess what? I found another book. Let's look at this one little chapter here. Oh, don't read the pages after it. But let's just read this one little part here. And then, see, it says black. Okay, close it. Don't wait. But it was saying something that don't care. Listen, you either going to trust me or you're going to trust God. One of the two. And a lot of our people are discouraged from looking these things up on their own. I can't tell you. I've had several people tell me, why are you reading all these books? You don't need to be reading all them books like that. You need one book, and that's the Bible. I'm trying to tell you, sounding just like they are not just walked off of a plantation, that they still on one. And because, unfortunately, a lot of them are still, in fact, on one. You know what I'm saying? And we just doing our part. We're not here to mock those people. We're here to help our people to wake up and to get off of that. Because there's so much more out here, but it starts with you being honest and truthful with yourself. Okay. All right. So let me look at this other post here while we're here. This is the latest post here. Now, this one is, hopefully it will cause you to think. This is another one. All right. This is something else. Oh, there's so many things, y'all, we can share and talk about. This is one I did yesterday. I think yesterday, right? And I had a couple of people just going, they were trying to circle this square, and it's like, no, this is what it says. Anyway, this one right here, this is in 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 1. It says, and again, the anger of Yahweh. That's what, anytime you see the word Lord in scripture, is actually Yahweh. You can look it up, and that's in Hebrew. It has nothing to do with the Greek, like this one person was trying to make it. No, it's Hebrew. It's Yahweh. All right. And again, the anger of the Lord Yahweh was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah. Okay, so that's 2 Samuel 24:1. All right, and then let's jump to this other scripture. Okay, 1 Chronicles chapter 21, verse 1. It says, and Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. Wait a minute now, hold on. So you got Yahweh on one hand telling him, go ahead and start numbering your people. Even though that's not what he was supposed to do, but Yahweh wanted him to do it. What sense does that even make as my light goes out? And then as you continue in that other passage, as I'm getting my light back on here, here you have Satan doing the same thing and convincing David to number the people. Now, I just posted this because I'm just saying, y'all, does that even make any sense? That was it. There's no agenda. There was no hidden message I had in it. It was just, these are two scriptures. They don't match, do they? And that was it. And I had people trying to just go off and going all over the place. You just need to tell us what you trying to say here. When you say that, I want to be very clear in this. All right. And then we'll get to that other post and we're done. When you say, well, tell us what to think, what to believe, what you are acknowledging by asking that question is the fact that you are still enslaved, because only a slave wants someone to tell them what to believe and what to think. I am not your slave master, and I am not your pastor, and I am not here to tell you what to think. All we do is, as we come across some, truth or things that make you think or whatever, we pass it along and hope that maybe it'll open your eyes to ask more questions. That's it. Nobody's trying to start a church. Nobody's trying to start some secret ministry. Nothing like that. We just want our people to begin to we've been singing and we've been dancing and we've been crying. Anytime when I think of the goodness of Jesus and all he done for me, my soul cries out, hallelujah. And just like David, when he danced before the Lord, we will repeat scriptures all the time, but we don't read it. We don't read it because we're used to the pastor to read it for us. Why do you think you got a lot of these Hebrews when you see them out on the street corners? Read, brother. And it says, God said, stop right there. We're used to someone. The reason why they do that is because religion forever wants to treat you like a child. And once it says, no, you're too young to read this for yourself. We got to read it for you. Why do you think they do that in the church? Well, black churches, but that has come over into the Hebrew world as well. You got to have some grown person read for you. How about you read it for yourself? Read it for yourself. Why be intimidated by that? Why do you need a grown person to read for you? Have you ever thought of that? The fact that you need a grown person to read something for you. No, I'll read it myself. You understand what I'm saying? But this is what religion does. One day, we're going to take a closer look at this thing, and because I'm going to say this and I'm going to keep it moving. You know how in the scriptures it says, except a man becomes like a child, he can't even enter into the kingdom. But see, this is what religion does. You can't understand anything unless you think and act like a child. Now, we have taught and preached that, I understand that, it's got to be an innocence and all that. Yes, it's got to be an innocence. Yes, you should have an innocence about you in the sense of learning more things and all that, but you cannot carry yourself like a child. I'm trying to tell you right now, you got to stop acting and pretending to be a child. You got to grow up. And part of growing up is reading and investigating these things for yourself. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what you got to do. All right. We'll talk more about that passage in a later date. But anyway, let me go on to this other post that I posted here today. And this hopefully will be one of those many, many passages that have been sitting in the Bible for a long time. We just never really allowed ourselves to really think it all the way through. Okay. So here we go. This is Psalms 89:6. It says, for who in heaven can be compared unto the Lord, who's Yahweh, right? Who among the sons of the mighty can be likened unto the Lord? And then it goes on, it says, God, and it says, Elohim standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. And I just gave a side note on that, but I'll just say this. I'm not going to even read that part, but it's there if you want to read it. But that passage, Psalms 82:1, was quite interesting because it says God Elohim stands in the congregation of the mighty. It says God Elohim. Now, the word Elohim could mean a singular, but typically it means plural. Most of the time when you see Elohim is referring to a plural. All right. Singular of Elohim is Eloah. Okay, that's singular. So there's a singular word for Elohim. Okay. And so the only way that kind of makes sense is if they're referring to El in this passage. Because if they're referring to El, it does make sense because El is married to Asherah. Okay. See, we just read it straight up and don't even look a little bit deeper into the history with this. All the time you'll see, especially through the book of Acts, they're switching God names all the time. They'll go from Yahweh, and then they'll go to El, then they'll go to Baal, then they'll go to Yahweh, then go to El. It just switch all the time. And all the time you're reading it, you think they're talking about one singular God, but that's not it. It's not at all. Anyway, so let me go on here. This is 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 19 to 22. And let's read this. Let's read it. It says, and he said, hear thou therefore the word of the Lord, or Yahweh. I saw Yahweh sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on his right and left. So here you have Yahweh sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing by him on the right, on his left. And it says, and Yahweh said, who shall persuade Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one said on this matter, and another said on that matter. And there came forth a spirit that stood before him, Yahweh, and said, I will persuade him. And Yahweh said unto him, wherewith? And he said, I will go forth, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And he said, thou shalt persuade him and prevail also. Go forth and do so. Now, therefore, behold, Yahweh had put a lying spirit in the mouth of all of these thy prophets, and Yahweh has spoken evil concerning thee. I am going to take my time today. All right. We're going to take our time. So here we have Yahweh, the Lord, saying that working with amongst his council. He has a council of gods that he sits with. And amongst his council, he has not just a spirit, he has a lying spirit that says, hey, how about I go down there and I put my lying mess or whatever in the mouth of all of your prophets. Okay. Now, these are prophets of Yahweh. So you would think, okay, they up and up. They just going to say what Yahweh says, what God tells them. If God tells them this, that, or whatever, these are prophets. You hear what I'm saying to you? Like Elijah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, prophets. Do you understand what I'm saying? Hope you tracking me. So these are prophets. So for whatever reason, here we have Yahweh saying, you know what? We need to stir some things up a little bit. Who's going to go down there and now become a lying? Who's going to do something? And then you got this spirit comes out in this council and says, I'm going to go and I'm going to basically have them convince them to start lying. I'm pausing there for the effect. Why? Because what is one of the 10 commandments? It's something about, if my memory serves me correctly, I think it says something about not lying. Now we're in 1 Kings now. This is done way past Moses and the 10 commandments, way past that. We are reading the text as is. We're not inferring anything. So please do not come in my comment section and start saying, well, what kind of sort of happened is that in heaven, they had an agreement. And what they're trying to say is, see, brother, what you need to do is you need to study deeper. Like I had someone else say, no, we're reading it as is. We're reading this as is. And so far, this ain't making any sense, is it? Well, let's continue. So that was in that case. All right. So now let's go to Job chapter 1, verse 6 through 12. Let's read it. Now, there was a day when the sons of God, or the sons of Yahweh, came to present themselves before the Lord, or Yahweh, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord, or Yahweh, said unto Satan, so now they're talking, and he came unto Satan, whence thou comest thou? All right. And Satan answered to Yahweh, and he said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down it. And Yahweh said unto Satan, hast you considered my servant Job, that there be none like him on the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth, or whatever, evil. Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, doth Job fear you, God, for naught? Hast thou not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he hath on every side? Hast thou blessed the work of his hands, and the substance is his increase in the land? But put forth thine hand now and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. And Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, all that he hath is in your power. Only upon himself put not forth thine hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh. So here we have another case where Yahweh is conspiring with Satan and saying, hey, listen, you can go and you can attack this person. I know he's doing all this good and stuff, but yeah, let's test him a little bit, Satan. Come on, come on, man. Let's do a little something. Let's have a little game here. Let's test them a little bit. Okay, well, again, I'm reading this to y'all, not like your pastor used to read it. We're reading it as is, and we're using our minds here as we're reading it. All right, so now let's go and read these passages here. All right, this is Habakkuk. I think that's how you say it. 1:13. Now, check this out. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I just read a couple of passages here where not only is he conversing with an evil spirit in one and whole Satan on the other one, but but one of them in the passage, he is part of the council. He's having a council meeting, and an evil spirit shows up in the council meeting. Do you understand what council is? Okay, as a leader, if I'm a leader, I got a council of men around me. We're making decisions about this, that, or whatever. I don't want to hear from a rapist. I don't want to hear from a thug. You have no voice up in this piece. Do you understand what I'm saying? You ain't got no voice in here. None. Get out of here. So in this intergalactic council meeting, here you got this evil spirit that shows up and says, hey, listen, I can do this for you. And he's like, you know what? Go right on ahead and do that. But then when we get to this passage here, it says, your eyes are too pure to look on evil. Wait a minute here. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Wait a minute here. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. But we just read earlier where he condoned it. He said, go out and be a lying spirit among my prophets. Is that right doing? Well, Dwayne, see, you don't understand. See, his ways are, but shut up. Just be quiet. We're reading it as is. We're reading it as is. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? Here's another passage, Psalms chapter 5, verse 4. For you are not a God who is pleased with wickedness. With you, evil people are not welcomed. But he just allowed whole Satan, all of Satan, up in the council meeting. And he's conversing with them and getting advice. You got Satan giving Yahweh advice on what to do. See, this is what I'm trying to tell y'all, and that's why we got to, I don't mind riding the slow bus with people. I don't mind that, as long as we get to our destination. So whether we on a bullet train or on a helicopter, or on a jet, or on a slow bus, I don't care, as long as we get to the destination. But I really, 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 really need y'all to start using your brain and start reading this as is, without any inference, without you adding stuff to it. We're reading it as is. All right, here's the next one. 1 John chapter 1, verse 5. This is the message we have heard from him and declare to you. God is light, and in him there is no darkness at all. But again, you got Satan and this evil spirit showing up at the council meeting, giving you advice and telling you what to do. There's another passage said that he's clothed in darkness. There's another one here, but this passage is saying that there's no darkness in him. That's what it says here. All right, let's continue on. James chapter 1, verse 17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights. And didn't say the Father of darkness, the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. It's another one that you gotta read it, but you gotta contrast it with all the other stuff. I'm glad you're getting it, Brother Richard. I'm glad you're getting it. This is real, man. This is real, ain't it? Okay, here we go. Now, this is a big one here. This is a big one. This is a big one. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? Wait a minute here. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What fellowship can light have with darkness? I just read to you earlier those two passages where light and darkness were conspiring together to attack people on the earth. That's what it says. I'm not misreading that. That's what it says. You read it too. At least I hope you did. And so I wrote down here, I said, on one hand, God's eyes cannot look upon evil or tolerate wrongdoing. But as we just read earlier, Satan is part of his divine counsel. And what is a fellowship? A fellowship is an association or a friendly association, especially with people who shares one's interests. So when it says what fellowship can light have with darkness, now we can understand that light and darkness, you can't really coexist in the same room. I mean, you wouldn't get technical, there's some shadows in here and there's light in here, but we get the point. We get the point in this. But in the point, however, it doesn't match with what has been written in this book, because here you have you got an evil spirit and you got Satan fellowshipping together. And what did we just read here? Fellowship means that they have a shared interest. What it means is that based off of the scriptures, we're not adding anything to it. I got to keep emphasizing that. Based off of this passage, both God and Satan both had a shared interest. I know this is messing y'all up. I know this is messing people up. I know it is. But I'm going to need you to use your brain. You're going to have to use your brain in this. That's why you got one in the first place, to use it. And it's okay. It's okay. You're going to be just fine. But you're going to have to start being truthful and honest when you're reading this stuff, instead of start being, singing all these gospel songs and all this that got all these scriptures in it, but you don't have any context because you never took the time to read it yourself, because you're waiting for someone to read it for you. And then I just added, I said, how is Satan part of a divine council where the one over the council can't look at him or tolerate him due to the fact he specializes in wrongdoing, yet he's employed by him? Huh? How is that even possible? So this is, I try to come up with something here, but so this gives you a rough idea. So what we're supposed to envision when we're reading this passage is that in the middle, we got God sitting at this table, or, he's in the divine council meeting, and he's surrounded by all of these other ghouls and goblins and demons and all these other, people, other gods and stuff. And they all sitting around talking like, okay, now what we going to do here? What are we going to do? Oh, I'm a righteous God. I'm God all by myself. I don't need anybody else. Right? We be saying that over and over again. He don't need anybody else. How many times we've said that? But then in the Bible, it says that he has a divine council. So if you don't need anybody else, why do you have a council? That don't make any sense, does it? That makes no sense, does it? But black folks will sing it. He's God by himself. He don't need anybody else. But we just read these passages here. Not only does he have a council, but he also requires Satan and his evil spirits to be a part of it. This is in the Bible, y'all. This is in the Bible. What you attack, and the same book you attack, you protect. And when someone asks any questions about it, well, I don't know, you giving some strange doctrines. This ain't strange to you. I'm just reading it. This adds up to you. This certainly does not add up. It doesn't. And then you have, was it Psalms 93, I think, where it talks about how, that whole passage when he says, you are gods. Is that it? Let me see if I can find that real quick. And then I'm pretty much done here. But let me pull that one up here, because, that's another one of those passages that black folks like to pull up and say that, see, he's saying that we're all gods here. No, he's not. That's not what's being said here. Let me see. Gods, Psalms. Oh, 82. Yeah, Psalms 82. There you go. Psalms 82. Let me get that up here. Psalms 82. I'll get the full chapter here. This is the passage that, a lot of our people, we like to quote this one all the time. Here it is. This is another one. I didn't have that listed in the post, but this is another one here. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. Wait a minute here. Wait a minute. We taking our time. We're taking our time here. We're taking our time. Let's read that first verse again. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. So he's standing amongst these gods. What does it say here next? He judges among the gods. So that means that his judgment is happening among these other gods who are basically contributing to what that judgment is. So he's among them. It didn't say he judges above the gods. It says he judges among the gods. So what this is saying is the input that he's getting in order to judge is coming from these other gods. That's what this is saying. Like I said again, we're walking slow here. It ain't no shame riding the slow bus today. Okay, we're gonna ride the slow bus. That's fine. Some of us, we may need that, the ramp to get on, if you got a wheelchair, that's okay. We'll wait for you. It's fine. Ain't no shame on this bus. We'll take the slow bus. It's fine. We're going to get to our destination now. All right. Now, verse 2. How long will you judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Now, this is Yahweh speaking to these gods. And what this is saying is that these gods, each one of these gods, have been given authority to these different nations. That's what this is saying. When you read it in its full context, I'm not implying anything. I'm being very clear here. Read it as it's written, okay? And he's telling them here, how long will you judge unjustly? He's dogging them, he's calling them out. Think of a manager, he going to his subordinates. He's like, how long will you judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? And he says, defend the poor and fatherless, do justice to the afflicted and needy, deliver the poor and needy, rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods. He's talking to them. He's talking to this council of gods that's surrounding him. He's not talking to you. My goodness, I can't tell you how many times I've run across people who've used this passage to say, see, we're gods. It says it right here. No, he's saying, he's talking, he's in the middle of a conversation here. All right. He says, I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. He's talking to these other gods and saying, all of you are children of the Most High. What did we say who the Most High is? El Elyon, or in other words, El. When you hold this, what I am reading to you now, to the Canaanite pantheon, El and Asherah are the Most High. They're the Most High. They're the highest gods. You can't go any higher than that. And then under them, you have this whole family of gods. That's who's talking here. That's all the conversation that's happening between these gods. And he's saying, wait a minute. I have said to you guys that you are gods and you are children of El, or El Elyon. All right. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. That's what it says. So that's what's happening here. So when you read these passages here, it's not matching, is it? It's not matching. You can't, how can on one hand, we paint this picture as if, and I'm just going to say God for now, oh, he can't be around. He can't deal with any darkness. There's no darkness in him. Any kind of sin or wickedness, it can't even enter into his presence. None of that can even enter into his presence at all. None of that at all. But yet we just read these passages where he got Satan and the evil spirit sitting up on the council board, helping them to judge. Now, the reason why, again, the confusion, why it's confused like that, honey, there ain't no errors there. That's exactly what I'm saying. When you start going down this path and begin to understand how these different groups had their own sets of gods and deities and stuff like that, and then when these people got together and their belief systems slowly start making it into this jambalaya pot that we call the Bible, you can Psalms, Proverbs, a lot of these books and stuff, they'll be making reference to, that's why they just say God and Lord, because they had to say that because it covers, you don't know, sometimes they're referring to Yahweh, sometimes they're referring to El, sometimes they're referring to some of these other gods. So that's why they just said, we're just going to say God. You don't know who they're talking. You don't know really who they're talking to until you start going in and understanding, okay, who are the people that actually put this thing in the first place? And for the billionth time, it ain't your Negro family. Your family had nothing to do with this. I don't care how many documentaries these people be spinning out here telling you that, this is black people. This is our book and this is our history book. It ain't it ain't. It is not our book. This is not our book. This is Mesopotamian, this is Greek, this is you got Rome all up in there, and you got the Jews, and then you also got Egyptian stuff in there. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of things that are in there. And they trained us not to only listen, but never to ask. They trained us to obey, but never to ask and investigate. And so, yes, we've been here for over 400 years. I'm talking about as far as slavery is concerned. And we're still at this point. We're still at the place where we just simply listen and obey. And that's not just here. You can go on the continent in Africa, too, and what colonialism has done. I mean, you got, people all up and down in that continent. That's all they know. They literally went through that continent from one point to another and stripped their indigenous belief systems away in many ways, and then forced Christianity on them. And now you got it's haywire. And because that's all they know. You got to be obedient. And then you have to train yourself to keep reading something over and over again. The same scriptures you're reading over and over and over again. Aren't you tired of just reading the same things over and over again? That's like watching the same show over and over again, the reruns over and over and over and over and over again, hoping that you get something else. You'll find a new laugh in it, or find something, a mistake that the director made and all of that. And you keep watching it and listening over and over again. Don't you get tired? The Bible ain't no different. Be honest. What if I did a video and I posted up here and I said, we're going to talk about David and the line and David and Goliath. You're going to turn it off. You're going to be like, okay, all right, I already know this story. But did you hear about how David, before he went to the thing, and did you notice that when they put that armor on, have you ever wondered what kind of armor he had? I got to find some new kind of angle to talk about. No, it's the same story over and over again. And only slaves will see that the value in seeing something over and over again, because all a slave is trained to do is to listen and obey. You are not trained to question anything. And this is what we are trying to do here on this platform. And we're going to continue to do it. OK. And as I said before, for those that email me, or if you interact with me, let's say in the comment section or whatever, I had some people, one person saying, well, you being rude and you being mean. No, I'm direct. I'm a very direct person. And what I don't tolerate is when if we're having a conversation about factual history and you come in and your only references are the Bible, I'm going to call you out on it. I'm going to say, no, you got to go beyond that. How is this true? And if I ask you those things, don't get mad at me. You need to verify that. Doesn't make me better. I'm just trying to make sure that there's continuity and there's peace in this conversation. But if you're coming in with all of these made up things and, well, because it says in first, did you read the the hidden books, the Apocrypha that's the last thing. So many of our people out here, that's another lie our people keep repeating over and over again, that the Apocrypha were hidden books. These were not hidden books for the umpteenth time. They were not hidden books. There was nothing hidden about these books. The only people that are really saying that are people who did not pay attention for all of these decades that has been available. The book's been available. The books of Enoch and all of that, Judith and all these books have been available. There was nothing hidden about them at all. But even with that, you still have to ask the basic question. Are these books historically accurate? So you don't have to have a whole stack of books and stuff in your house. I mean, you don't have to do that. Don't get intimidated by that. Okay. Don't put that in your mind. But this exercise that we did in this video, start off with the scriptures that that you've always had questions with, but you never really got a straight answer to. Start with that. Just start. It's very simple, very simple. And as you continue to ask those little questions, you're going to find yourself, if you're really about the truth, it's going to lead to another question, which leads to another question, which leads to another question. You know what I'm saying? And, we can talk about Jesus feeding the 5,000, the loaves and the fish. Did that really happen, or was that based on some other ancient story? It's okay to ask those kind of questions. You understand what I'm saying? It's okay. And I'm here to encourage you and tell you that it's okay. I'm not here to clown anybody. People that are still wanting to be a Hebrew or whatever, that's your choice. But as we said earlier in this video, you also got to take ownership. If you want to say that the Hebrews or the Jews of old or whatever were black, okay, well, you're going to have to also take ownership of the fact that these people were instructing Gentiles to knock off the noses of statues, because that is also part of your claimed history. You don't have the authority or the right to all of a sudden switch gears and say, well, no, that's the white ones. We don't do that. You got to be honest. Either that's your culture or it's not. Plain and simple. There's things within African culture I'm not necessarily proud of, you know what I'm saying? But it's, at the end of the day, it's part of my culture. You know what I mean? And, and you just got to go. It just goes with that. So anyway, I don't want to prolong this video. That's all I have for you guys. I hope you got something out of this. And I hope most importantly, it's something that really challenges you to use your mind, use your brain. That's what your creator, he gave it to you for that reason, to use your brain. You don't have to get in some long debate and discussion, with folks, over scriptures and stuff like that. Because a lot of the stuff that you see online where people are arguing and debating over scriptures, what's really happening is these are two or more people that are debating on their personal interpretation of those scriptures. I don't have time for that, and neither should you. The only energy that you have, if you're going to look at the scriptures, you should use that energy and say, okay, this is what it says here. Let me find and verify if this actually is true. And then you just keep it moving. If it's true, then so be it. If it ain't true, then you got to keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying? And that's all you should be. There should be no arguing or debating. I can't argue you out of your opinion. If that's your choice to believe this, that, or whatever, then that's your choice. You understand what I'm saying? But when the facts are on the table, regardless of what I choose to believe or not, is irrelevant, because the facts are here. And then from there, we can build on those facts and on the truth, and that alone. You know what I'm saying? And that's how we all should be. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for your patience. We had to start and stop earlier, but we finally got it. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Let me know, and you guys take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, your evening, your weekend, and love you very much. But we love you enough to tell you the truth. Okay, take care. See you next time.